Okay, so today we're going to be doing a full tour of my home fish room so you guys can see. This is my little home fish room. I've actually got a video on setting this up. I don't know if that's going to be out by the time I upload this video, but yeah, this is my brand new fish room at home. So these are the tanks that I spend the most time with now. And this is the first time I've had tanks at my house in the last probably 5 years, which is crazy to think about because I obviously started with tanks in my house and now I went, 5 years of running a fish shop and breeding fish outside of my house because I never really actually had my own place. And now I've got my own home. I've set up what is the start of my dream fish room. So today we're only going to be looking at 16 of my tanks, but I'm going to go in depth and explain what's going on in each one, do some really nice B-roll and talk about all the projects that are going on. And then I'm going to show you like the future plans, and we're just going to hang out today. I'm not expecting this to be a short video. I'm going to really put a lot of effort in and show you as well my ponds and get you guys really excited about the future plans, what's happening with this room. And then also I'll do a little bit of chat about what's happening with the shop maybe at the end. And yeah, we're just gonna have a good time. So as you guys can see, I've already made myself a coffee in a Bug Buffet mug. Now, I'm actually doing a promotion at the moment. If you spend over $200 on my website, either buying fish or buying food, we're giving either a free Bug Buffet mug or a free Bug Buffet stubby cooler. Just a little promotion just to give back. I really love having coffee, and yeah, I thought it'd be kind of cool to run a promotion like that. I've always dreamed of doing something like that, and yeah, get yourself a little Bug Buffet mug. You can also buy them, but I prefer you guys just get them for free if you buy a lot of food. So yeah, but all right, I'll have a sip. Now let's talk about the setup. So what we've got at the moment, we've got these cube tanks here. These are awesome. These are 2 foot long by 2 foot high, and I've got 4 of them here. And then over here, we've got 2 3-foot aquariums. And then here we have 8 2-foot aquariums. Now these are designed for like breeding fish, and they're also designed for doing little scapes. I've been playing around with some plants and having just, lots of fun. And then over here, we have 2 4-foot aquariums. Now, I have a lot of plans to make this room even more marvelous. So up here, I've just finished doing this in the past week. I've built this stand up. So in the previous video we've seen, it was just like this 2 layers. And originally I didn't add another layer because I kind of get annoyed trying to do top tanks. Like I found that when you have a fish room, the top tanks kind of get ignored a lot, and also like corner tanks. So this tank kind of would get ignored. This one's kind of in eyesight, but like if we had tanks in that corner, they kind of just end up accidentally getting ignored because they're not in like the direct sight. So I didn't want to have tanks up the top, especially like a bunch of 2-footers, because it was just going to be honestly just super annoying trying to like take care of them, if that makes sense. And also there's not really like enough height to have a full-size 2-footer that you can actually get in. Like I like to leave about 20 centimeters of space between the tank just to really like be able to get in there, get driftwood. I can stick my head in behind here too, just if I need to get like in and like look at the automatic water change system. That's why I didn't build it up originally, but you can see now I've added an extension on the top, and I've got a really cool plan here. So there's gonna be a 6-foot long low boy tank here, and I'm gonna set this one up as like a stream. So it's gonna be about that high, and it's just gonna look amazing, like, because you're gonna come in and you're just gonna see like, boom, like a huge low boy plants coming out of the top, and I'm super excited about that. So that's the first plan. And then over here, I've already started building out the stands, and I've knocked out the cupboard here, and we're gonna be putting in even more tanks here. So on this rack, I'm gonna have another big cube tank here and another big cube tank there, and I can either set them up so that they look like that, like kind of scaped, but I'm thinking more that these are gonna be used for like growing out fish because I'm planning on doing a lot of breeding. So I'll need space to grow out fish. I'm gonna have 6 2-foot tanks like here. So like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And they're all gonna be like long ways. So they're gonna be like short side here and then go that way. And these are gonna be like for breeding and spawning and also raising out babies. And then I'm gonna add 2 cube low boy tanks up the top here as well. So these are gonna be like the same as the ones I was talking about before, just sit on top and they're gonna look so cool. You just gotta like bear with me. This is probably gonna take another good couple of months to get it all set up properly. And then in here, I'm so excited about here. I'm building, so this used to be a cupboard. I've knocked it all out with my friend Jason from Australian Biotopes, and I've been painting it. So I've just done a priming layer. There's a lot of like touch-ups to do just to make it look neat. But I'm gonna be extending the automatic water change gutter around here. And then I'm gonna be putting in a fish tank stand here so that like, it's gonna be like, you can come in here and it'll be all tanks just everywhere around. I'm planning on hiding this linear air, well, I think this is a diaphragm pump. I'm gonna hide this diaphragm pump behind there, but I'm gonna have a big tank along the top here, and then maybe some more 2-footers, and then another huge cube or 2 cubes down here. And that'll complete all of the tanks in here. I'm also planning on adding a pond here and connecting it to our automatic water change system. And I'm thinking about making a little stand or rack here so that I can add like little 5-gallon tanks for hatching out fry and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking about also doing the same thing here. So you can see there's like a lot of things I'm gonna add to this room. Yeah, I've got a lot of plans, but that's what's gonna be happening in here. I think that's it. So it's also important to note, I've got an automatic water change system going on in here. So I actually had a plumber install this, but this is just tap water. And you can see I bumped over my broom. I'll pick that back up. So this is just water in. I've got this tapped in from outside. I got it all professionally done because I don't want it exploding and I'm not a plumber, so I don't know how it works. But basically I got him to link it up and I've just done irrigation over the top here. And I've hidden it as well as I can. This is the 3rd automatic water change system I've built. You can see I've hidden it behind the stands and like done the best job I can to try and make sure it doesn't look like a big ugly eyesore. I probably could have done a better job by painting the walls black, but it's done now, whatever. Basically the way this water change system works is I do have chloramines in my water, which is really annoying because you can't filter them out. So I go around with tap water conditioner and I put it in all the tanks that I'm gonna do a water change. I turn the water change on per tank with like these valves. So a better example is over here. So I turn that on if I want the water change to be on in the tank. And then I come on, switch it on here. And now water is coming into those tanks. I'll just leave it on for a second so you can actually see it come in. You see water's coming in now? Now that water will dilute this aquarium and it'll overflow out the back here. It's through the overflow, so I'll turn this off because I don't want to poison my fish. And then it connects to this gutter. And the gutter goes outside, and I'm going to be extending the gutter so it does automatic water changes on every single tank in here. But let's go outside and have a look at where the gutter goes. So it's been a little bit bad weather, but we'll come through my house. This is an old house, by the way. But if you come out here, I've linked the gutter up to my outdoor ponds. So these are all my outdoor ponds that I've set up. These are just IBC containers. And I've got a few things going on in here, so we'll talk about those later on in the video. But the way this works is you can see the gutter comes out, the fish room's in behind there. The gutter comes out here, goes into this sump, and when it fills up, there's a pump here with a float valve that turns on. So you can see it just turned on. And then the water will come into our ponds and it'll get a second life. So we actually get a second use for the water coming out of the fish room, and it does a water change on all these ponds. And then the ponds, they're a little bit messy right now because they're just brand new and they're full of algae and you've got to get them all like settled in. But the ponds have an overflow and the overflow just goes on the lawn. But the other cool thing is I've got like a ton of veggies going in my veggie garden at the moment, and I've got an irrigation system here. I've actually attached this pump to my veggies. So that way I can also use the old aquarium water for growing vegetables and yeah, feeding myself. So the water's not completely wasted, but we'll talk about these ponds after. Let's go back inside and have a look at all the tanks. What I also like to do before I film all these tanks is you can see there's like a little bit of glare, and that's because like firstly I got white tiles down, so I'm going to try and find like a better solution for this floor. But also just the light of all the tanks hits them. So to minimize the glare today, when we talk about each of the tanks, I'll firstly close these terrible curtains, which were here from the previous renters. And I'm going to swap these curtains out for something prettier later, but that's all going to be done once I'm done building. So we'll close the curtains. But over here, I've actually linked up all the lights on a, these are Wi-Fi timers, so I can control them from my phone, but I can turn off the tanks by layers by doing this. So we've just turned off all of the bottom tanks, as you can see. All right, so that just leaves us with this aquarium. So this is my 4-foot long Amazon tank. Now this is a brand new aquarium that I just set up. I think this is a 55-gallon tank, and in here I've set it up with some fish that I brought home from the shop. So I've got some rummy nose tetras in here. I've got some cardinal tetras. I've actually got some black emperor tetras, which I bred at my store. You guys should definitely go and visit my store if you're in Brisbane or around Brisbane. I'll pop the address up on the screen. I picked up all these fish from my store. I've got some koi angelfish in here, and I've got some all different types of whiptails, and I've also got some cories. So let's take a look at some of the interesting stuff going on in here. So at the back here, I've got a whiptail catfish. This is a royal whiptail. This is a big male that I've had for 3 or so years. He's been sitting on this log, and I've actually been trying to get him to breed. I've bred him before with one of the females that's in here. I've only got one female at the moment, but I've bred him before with her, and she sits down under here, and you can see she is getting super duper fat. So he's been sitting normally on the back glass or on that log, and I recently just turned the air stone up here just to get a little bit more flow to see if it could entice him to breed. I've been doing water changes on this tank probably every couple of days, and I've been feeding them a ton of bug buffet. I've been feeding them a ton of green cuisine, and I've also been doing frozen brine shrimp and live baby brine shrimp in this tank as well. I hatch out baby brine shrimp every day, and they have looked like they might want to breed soon. So I'm kind of excited about that. I've also got these cardinal tetras in here growing out at the moment because I really want to try and breed these in the future. I'm just waiting until I get this room kind of finished and settled in before I start doing some of these more tricky fish that I've never really played around with. Same with these rummy nose. I keep saying rasboras, it's just because I've got a couple of them in store, but these rummy nose tetras, these are definitely a breeding size, and I'd love to try and have a breed of them. They're just such a cool fish. They look so good in here. My girlfriend loves this tank. Basically, all the fish that I have in here, I've been trying to grow out so that I can eventually breed them, especially the koi angels. I actually saw these in my store the other day, and I just got super duper inspired because koi angels were the first angelfish that I can remember breeding properly. And I started a little bit of a breeding project but gave up on it, where I was trying to breed them so that they'd have more yellow and black and less white. So I'm going to try and do that project again. I'm going to get these guys to pair up and spawn and then raise out their babies, and I'll take you guys along for that whole journey as well. But I'm going to try and breed those. And I've also got some rams in here. They're kind of small, but if I feed them some bug buffet, they'll all come out. But these are like a blue-black ram. I'm just growing these out to see what they look like. I might breed them in the future, but they're just a cool fish. Rams are a great little dwarf cichlid. If you have an Amazon tank at home or like a community aquarium that you need to like just add something cool to, definitely consider adding rams. They're just awesome little fish. I love breeding rams. You can also see here, if I'm really careful, a Napoensis Cory. These are super underrated. They're awesome. They breed all the time. Super easy to breed. They lay tiny little eggs. And I'm just keeping them in here so that I can breed them in the future. This is kind of just like, firstly, a tank where I wanted to just do a nice, well, like a decent scape. I collected all this wood from the creeks and stuff, but I wanted to do a decent scape. But this is just to house fish for future breeding in here. But it also just looks cool. So it's got like a double benefit. But I've added, these are ocelot swords here, and this one's just starting to grow in pretty decently for me. So that's an ocelot sword. I've got some Amazon swords out the back. And basically the plan is just to grow all these fish out, grow these swords up, and yeah, just get a really cool tank. And then when I'm ready, I can start breeding some of these fish. But let's add some food. See if I can find my bag of bug buffet here. So obviously being the owner, I get to have big bags of bug buffet whenever I want. But we'll go ahead and grab a big handful of this stuff. Now you'll see why I love feeding this so much, and it's because it breaks up so well. So it's really good for feeding community tanks. You can see they all go nuts for it too. And being at home, I get to feed this tank like 3 or 4 times a day. So these fish grow insanely quick. But you can see it breaks up into like little particles and kind of goes everywhere. And that's really good because the cories are going to get to eat all the dust that goes on the floor. The angels can pick out the sizes they want. And trust me, it might look dirty right now, but this stuff gets cleaned up within 30 minutes. And also all that really fine dust, like you can see, there's like super fine dust going around. That stuff goes in your filter and it feeds all your beneficial bacteria. It creates biofilm. Like you can see all these logs are getting a ton of this stuff on there. And that biofilm feeds shrimp, it feeds snails, it feeds bristlenose. So not to worry. I think it's just, for me, this product is all about revolutionizing how people think their aquariums should be fed. And honestly, this is like, for me, the #1 way. I've tried using other products, and ever since I've started using Bug Buffet, I just haven't had the same results. So you can see the fish go absolutely nuts for it. The tetras have already been fed heaps today already, so they're a little bit more docile because they know they're going to keep getting fed. But everyone goes around, eats it, and yeah, I absolutely love this stuff. So yeah, that's my Amazon tank. We'll turn these lights off and go to the next one. Turn those off, and then we'll just go over here and turn these on. All right, so we'll just start here. This is just going to be a real quick tank. But this is my first fry tank here in the room. And in here, I've got some rainbow fish fry. Oh, damn, the phone glare is going to be terrible. Okay, I've got some rainbow fish fry, and I've also got some blue eye fry. And I'll show you kind of like all the fish that are fry in here. But I've basically just been taking eggs, throwing them in here until the biggest fry are too big and they're going to start eating the little ones. And the idea with this isn't to make a ton of fish. This is just to get backup of all the species I want to keep and breed that I kind of need to breed all the time. So like right next door, this tank actually looks great with this lighting. These are my Luminatus, and I've bred all these. These are my like 2nd generation. These fish are kind of short-lived. You can see they're actually going to breed on top of that spawning mop. You can see why I love them so much. Yeah, these fish are relatively short-lived, so they'll live for a couple of years, but they're really only good for breeding from 6 months to a year old. And it's just getting to the point where I need to create a next generation, otherwise I won't get to keep this fish. And this is kind of a fish that's a little bit harder to get here in Australia, so they're worth their weight in gold. I'm just spawning them at the moment to try and, yeah, keep my populations, and hopefully these babies that come up, I'm going to use to breed and make heaps of them, and then I'll sell them at the shop and you guys can have them as well. But so you can see they're super cute little fish. They're a tiny blue eye, so they're a pseudomogul, and they are flaring up amazingly for us here. This is why I love this fish. Look at that. I mean, what the heck? What an insanely cool species. So what I have been doing to keep these guys super healthy is feeding them live mosquito larvae, live baby brine shrimp. I've got some banana leaves in here to help with just adding tannins and whatever. And I've also just got a spawning mop. Now, you'll notice there's no snails in here and there's no shrimp. So I do have to be a little bit careful with how I feed this tank. And I definitely do not overfeed it, because otherwise I'll run into problems with obviously ammonia and stuff like that, because there's no plants to balance it. But the reason I don't have snails and shrimp is just so that they don't eat the eggs and compete for eggs. And basically the only goal is to keep the pseudomoguls happy so that they think about spawning in this all day. And I've been harvesting about 15 to 20 eggs a day out of that mop. If you guys want to see, I'll just grab out the mop actually for you so you can have a look. We'll see if there's some eggs in here. Well, I just remembered that I harvested eggs out of that this morning, so there's probably not going to be any eggs in there at the moment, and I couldn't find any. But yeah, so these are my Luminatus, another cool little nano fish. We might have a few of these at my shop, so go and check that out. And yeah, we'll move on to the next tank. So in this tank, we have some Gadiards. Now, I can't remember exactly what species this is. It's the same species from the tour I did with Adrian. You should definitely go and watch that video as well. That was an awesome video, I think. Lots of cool fish and things in there, but I got these from Adrian. He just gave them to me, and I've got them in this tank, and they've actually already bred. So you can see they're a little bit dull, like for a lot of people, but these are one of the coolest fish that I have in here at the moment. And look at the males. I mean, the males are really, really awesome. So, I mean, obviously compared to like a platy or something like that, these guys aren't as beautiful. But once you've kept a lot of fish for a while, you want to start getting stuff that's kind of cool. And these are a live bearer. So they're exactly like guppies, platies, swordtails, except they're good-eared and they actually give birth to massive fry. So when Adrian gave me the adults that you can see in here, they looked like these babies. Like they're about this size, and I grew them all the way up to about this size, and they've popped out some babies for me now, and I've actually got, I think, a couple of generations of babies in here. So I've got these medium-sized ones, which I've been feeding bug buffet, and they've been growing pretty well. But I've also spotted the occasional smaller one in here, and yeah, they kind of just dance around those banana leaves all day and the roots, and I don't find they predate on their babies, so they're really easy to breed. All you have to do is keep them happy. And I'm planning on growing out this water wisteria super tall and making like a big bush in here. And just having fun with this tank, just trying to see what happens, just playing around with it, enjoying the fish. I'll add some bug buffet, you'll see they'll go nuts. Come over and grab a bit more. So we'll add some of this. They just love this stuff. And honestly, I feed them heaps. They're like little piggies for me. They just eat all day. And the good thing about all these little particles is it also feeds the babies. So the parents aren't just going around and hoovering up all the flakes. They actually get to share them with the babies, and yeah, it'll sit down the bottom for a little while, but they'll just pick at it for the next couple of hours. And the ingredients are just so good in the food that like I don't really stress too much about them getting bloat or anything like that. They just seem to eat it and grow, and you can see they're super happy. Like they're just constantly darting around trying to breed. So you tell me. But yeah, they're a cool fish, easy to breed, easy to take care of. They're just in town water, and they're probably extinct in the wild. I'm not too sure, but I know that a lot of these like good-eared species are threatened in the wild. So yeah, it's kind of important that we keep them in the aquarium hobby and just, you know, keep them alive at least. And who knows, maybe one day they'll take an aquarium population and reintroduce them in the wild if they can ever fix up the ecosystem. But I'll leave that up to you guys to talk about in the comments. So that's it for this tank. All right. Well, that's not good, is it? This just shows you guys that even I get dead fish from time to time. This is an old Ivan Stoffy Blue Eye, and we're going to recycle him and turn him into Baisha food. And he can come with the snails as well. So even I get dead fish. We'll throw them in this tank, feed the Baishas, and we'll talk about that tank later. This is a tank with my Ivan Stoffy Blue Eyes. So same story as the red neon blue eyes, pseudomogals. These are the Ivan Stoffies. They're not as beautiful, but they're still really cool. They've got the most luminescent eyes out of all the blue eyes. You can see like kinda on camera just how blue they really are. So they are a really cool fish, but I'm basically just breeding these to keep a backup population so that I can spawn them later. And I've also got my yellow Hellboy betta in here. So he came into the shop and I just couldn't resist him, and I took him home. He got nipped by I had him in the good-eared tank. The good-eareds actually nipped his fins. So he's been sitting in here, probably eating a few of the pseudomogal eggs and just enjoying his life. But I've got plans to breed him with a female. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So I've been just keeping him in here, keeping him conditioned. I'm probably going to try and spawn him in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, I'm excited to try and get some babies from this yellow Hellboy male. So that's what's going on in there. So in here, this is my Zebra Pleco grow out tank. And as you guys would have seen from the videos, I've wanted to breed Zebra Plecos for years. And I finally last year got successful, got lucky, had a couple of spawns, and the babies are in here. Now they're sharing a home with some Pygmy Corydoras. The betta in here, this is the female betta I was talking about. She's the one I'm going to cross with that yellow Hellboy. So you can see she's like a blue marble, blueberry koi, half moon placat. She's getting super fat because I've been feeding a ton of frozen brine shrimp and bug buffet in here. And yeah, when I see that she's kind of big enough that she could breed, I'm going to put them together and try and make some better babies. But the main thing that's cool in this tank is the Zebra Plecos, and I'm sure you guys want to see them. So I'm going to do this. Now they normally hide underneath this driftwood, and if you lift up this driftwood, you'll see how much they've grown. They've actually grown quite a bit. These are like definitely my favorite fish in the whole entire hobby. They're a little bit expensive. They're probably about 500 to 700 bucks a piece, which is ridiculous, but I'm trying my best to breed as many as I can. I haven't actually sold any. I'm keeping all of these at the moment to try and breed in the future because they're just so hard to get your hands on. But you know, once I grow up a few more, I might consider selling a few at the shop. I think there's at least 20 in here. I actually lost one to a really unfortunate accident where a rock slipped and it got crushed, and yeah, it was just kind of heartbreaking because I love this fish so much. So, you know, there's some proof that I also make mistakes. I screw up sometimes, and yeah, but you can see they're growing kind of slowly. You just don't really see these fish grow. Like, they just take a long time. They're probably, the biggest ones are probably about 6 centimeters and the smallest ones are probably still about 4 centimeters. So they're about a year old now. I'm planning on trying to breed them in not next year, but probably the year after. They take about 3 years to reach sexual maturity. I've still got all 9 of the adults that I originally bought, and you're going to see those in a moment. But I try and feed this tank as many times a day as possible because it is a grow out tank, and it's super easy to do water changes with that automatic water change system. So I just feed the hell out of the fish, and the more times you feed them a day, the quicker they grow. So like, these rainbows have been growing rapidly. But you'll see the zebra plecos will start to come out, and yeah, this is how I feed the bug buffet. But you see that female too? Even she gets a little bite. So I'm really excited to try and breed her. And the pygmy cories go nuts too. My plan with the pygmy cories is to set them up their own tank once I finish that expansion. But I just wanted to get some nice adults growing out so that when I put them in the tank, they were just super easy to start breeding. And I actually bred all these pygmy cories that are in here too. So they're a cool fish. I'm going to talk about them later on, but you can see I create like a little dust along the whole floor. And I do this normally before the lights go out at night. And because these zebra plecos are actually nocturnal. So if you come down at night with a torch and you look in this tank, everyone's asleep, but the zebra plecos are everywhere. So what I do is timer feeding for like right before the lights go out. And that way the floor is just covered in food and the zebra plecos just go nuts. But they will eat like during the day. They're just a little bit less confident. So you can see like this one comes out here. He's going to come get a bite of the food. But then if I come too close, he's just going to bugger off. They're just scared of me. So that's that tank. Another cool tank. Excited for a lot of things that are going on in here. And yeah. All right, this next tank is probably one of the coolest tanks in the entire room. And let's turn the lights on. This is going to be a good tank to feed green cuisine to. Turn the lights on. Oh, I can leave both lights on, whatever. This tank is full of neon tetras and snowball plecos. So all the neon tetras in here, there's probably about 100 to 120. I bred myself. I've got a video on that, and I've been growing them out, and they look so fabulous in here. It's not even funny. I've also bred all the snowball plecos in here. I've got a video on them too. I moved them from the shop to here, and I've got all the babies in here. This tank looks super cool when it's like this, but wait till you throw some food in here. So I'll get some of this green cuisine sinking sticks. I've actually got a question for you guys. So at the moment we're making these sinking sticks because I wanted them to be targeted to feed like catfish and algae eaters, and I wanted to put them like on the floor. So you basically throw them in like this and they all sink, but they're very, very hard. I'm thinking about keeping this for like catfish and things like this, but I'm thinking about making the green cuisine in the same way Bug Buffet is, as a powder, like more of like a conglomerate powder. And I was thinking that way you could feed Bug Buffet and green cuisine on corresponding days and get the greens in a bit more to your fish. Like, because the neon tetras find it really hard to pick at this stuff. So just, what do you guys think? Should I make green cuisine more like Bug Buffet, where it's like kind of powdery and conglomerate, and that way, and also keep the sticks so you can use the sticks for other stuff, but like make it like 2 separate products? Is that making sense? Just put it in the comments below. But this is why I love this tank, and this is only going to get better. So these are all the neons down here, and these are L201 snowball plecos. So I've had these for a couple of years. You guys probably heard me talk about them before. They were breeding like crazy at the shop. I've had them in here for about a month now, and they haven't really done anything because they just take a while to settle back into their new tanks. But you can see the adults look amazing. They only get like a couple of inches, so they're really cool dwarf like high pancistrus. And they absolutely love the green cuisine. They're actually high pancistrus, so they're meant to eat more meat, but I've found these guys love zucchini, they love green beans, they love greens and in general, so yeah, they're pretty cool. I've actually got a problem in here with shrimp at the moment, so you can see the tank's covered in red cherry shrimp. If you come look at this filter, it's just like loaded with red cherry shrimp, and for some reason I'm ridiculously good at breeding neocaradinas, even with like all of these predators in here. So I'm gonna have to take some time probably next week, just catch out a bunch of these neos and find them another home, because the neos are really good for keeping the tank clean, but I feel like they stop the plecos from breeding. And yeah, I obviously want these plecos to keep breeding. So I'm kind of just keeping these in here for now. And look how cool that is. Isn't that just the neatest? There's your proof for you if you wanted to know if the fish like green cuisine. They do love it. And even the neons are having a crack at it. So, but and even these little baby plecos come out and have a little nibble as well, which is kind of neat. But yeah, so the plan is to just keep them in here, keep them growing out. I have to do a ton of water changes on this tank. Like every day I probably do a 50% water change just to keep it really clean. And I'm just gonna grow out as many of these 201s as I can. When I finish the build, I'm gonna have a dedicated 201 breeding tank, sell off a bunch of these babies at the shop so you guys can buy them. And then I'm gonna try and just really focus on breeding these. And yes, yeah, so this is just kind of like a grow out tank at the moment, but it looks really neat, like with all the neons. So yeah, look at that, huh? This is what the hobby's all about. This is like one of my favorite things to do. I just come down at the end of the day, you know, with a drink, have a look at the fish, feed them, you know, just enjoy them, listen to music. All the fish listen to music with me. And these are just my little babies, they're my bubs. So I'm obsessed with this tank. This is definitely one of my favorite tanks in here at the moment. You know what's cool is these fish were in these 201s were with me at home. I got these when I was at home 4 years ago, and they're now adults and they've got their babies with them. So I put a lot of care into this fish and I've been rewarded. So yeah, this is a cool tank. But let's put some green cuisine in here. I'm only going to throw a couple of sticks and see if I can coerce them to come out. But this tank's a bit, not exactly as I want it. This is my zebra pleco breeding tank. So these are the 9 adults that I've had for, yeah, a couple of years now. I've bred them and the babies are in that other tank. But yeah, I don't know. I've had them in here for a couple of months now. I had some trappings, and right now is the breeding season. There's tons of storms coming through my area. And you know, I just haven't been able to get this fish to breed properly for me. So I'm hoping that just with a bit more TLC, I've been feeding them a lot of bug buffet, a lot of green cuisine, I've been feeding them frozen brine shrimp. I can hopefully get this fish to breed again, but I'm kind of just putting all my breeding plans and efforts on hold until I get this build done. So at the moment, they're just getting a lot of TLC, but I've had a shrimp explosion in here. If you look at this log's in a terrible spot at the moment too. Like it's just a temporary, like, this is just turned shit. I need to take this log out, blah, blah, blah. But it's covered in baby shrimp. I just can't stop these guys breeding, and they're so good for cleaning the tanks, but I reckon they really annoy the plecos. Eric Bodrock, my mate, when I went over there to the US, I've got a video coming out of his room. I've just not had time to edit it, but he said that the shrimp definitely bother the plecos, and I'm starting to think that too, because I've never really had much success with these high pans with a ton of shrimp in the tank. So I'm gonna have to get in here, get my hands real dirty and just clean out this tank, restart it. And when I say restart it, I'll take all the wood out, I'll put the caves in different spots, and I'll just take as many of the shrimp out as possible. And then the plan from there is just gonna be feeding and just water change, water change, water change with these. Just continuous water changes and try and get the tank as clean as possible and hopefully get them breeding. But yeah, maybe I'll do some cold snaps. I don't know what I need to do with this tank, but this is my main male in here. He's just always in this cave. He's the one who had babies before. He's trapped one female, but just done nothing since then. And yeah, I'm a little bit annoyed at him. But as well, I've got this bulbitis. This bulbitis is growing insanely good. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just a good tank for the bulbitis. So that's a cool plant from Africa. It's actually a fern, I think, and it grows out of the water. But I like growing it underwater. And yeah, this tank will look really cool once I fix it up. But you know, it's cool at the moment. So yeah, that's what's going on in here. I'd like to take a moment just to quickly shout out my editor. Grant sent me this zebra pleco ornament that he got done up. I think he said his father-in-law made it for him. I put that on the aircon above the Zeb tank, and he also sent me this sticker. And yeah, I just wanted to quickly give him a shout out. Thanks for editing my videos and helping me out, and thanks for the zebra pleco ornament. So cool. All right, well that kind of completes this top layer. I've got a few other little ornaments here. I've got a bat that I got in Cairns at the Angler Convention. I've got this skull which I collected in the Outback, and I've also got this possum up here. We'll go and turn on all these lights. I've got this photo from Jason, and turn on these ones again. I've got this painting that I did myself a couple of years ago, and just a bunch of other paraphernalia, another painting I did. So now we're on the bottom layer. I like to sit down like this and just look at all the tanks, layer at a time. We'll go through all these tanks as well real quick. All right, so here, this is my 4-foot Hillstream tank. This is definitely my girlfriend's favorite tank here in the room, so that's saying something. I really love this tank. I love the scape, but I do think it's got a long way to go before it looks its best. So it's showing really promising signs, but I think this is going to look a lot better very, very soon. So in here, I've got a group of Harlequin rasboras, which I'm growing up to breed in the future. These are a really underrated, cheap schooling fish. We sell heaps of these at the shop, so that's saying something, but these are really cool fish. They look great in here. I've also got emerald rasboras in here, and I probably have close to 300 Hillstream loaches in here, but you just don't see them until you just sit at this tank and wait a while, and you'll start seeing stuff come out. I'm gonna get a ton of B-roll of all the little critters in here, but you can see these rocks are covered in baby Hillstream loaches, and we originally set this tank up to breed the Hillstream loaches. So the reason I say this tank's not looking as good, it's going through this weird stage that most tanks do, where you set them up and they just got to grow in, and then they start looking amazing. You can see there's a ton of algae on a lot of like the roots of these terrestrial plants which are growing out of the top, these house plants. So there's lots of algae coming on because I've been feeding a lot. There's hydra because I've been feeding a lot. And yeah, this tank just needs a bit more time for the shrimp to settle in and start taking care of that algae problem. I might even add 1 or 2 mystery snails in here to help clean up the algae as well. But this tank, trust me, will look amazing really, really soon. Would you believe it? There's easily over 50 emerald rasboras in here, but you don't see a single one, huh? They just hide in those rocks. But when you sit here for like 5 minutes or sit on the other side of the room, they eventually just slowly start to come out. And even when I feed, they still hide. They're kind of annoying like that. But every now and then you'll catch them spawning over the moss and doing their thing. And yeah, they're really, really cool. So I've actually got a video coming out on how I set this tank up. My friend Jason from Australian Biotopes helped me set this tank up. He did an amazing job. We collected all the rocks ourselves, all the gravel ourselves. That piece of driftwood we collected as well. And yeah, we did it ourselves. I'm going to do a video of like setting it up, going through all the stages and how it looks when it looks really good. So you guys can be excited for that. The goal was to just build up like a ton of rocks, and the Hillstreams like chase each other all day, the adult Hillstreams, and they lay their eggs. And we added this really coarse gravel down the bottom and like big piles of rocks over there. And the idea was that the eggs could hide from like being eaten by these fish or the parents or whatever, and they could raise up. And we've just noticed that this has worked amazingly because there's just all different sizes of Hillstream babies in here. And yeah, it's just ended up being a really good tank for breeding Hillstreams. You can see there's actually an adult up in here. That's a female in there, like behind, that's a female there. So there's babies all over, like on all the different rocks. But yeah, it worked really, really well. And I think the bug buffet has a lot to say for that success, because the bug buffet, because it breaks up into like particles, has definitely been able to feed all those tiny microscopic babies. But my point was that like this mess definitely does help with rearing up the babies, because it creates just like micro life and bacteria and stuff that these tiny babies can eat constantly. So yeah, that's what's going on with this tank. Super excited to see how it turns out in the next couple of months. This is my pea puffer tank, and I originally set this tank up to grow crypts. So I added like a nice soil here. This is just coarse bedding sand from Bunnings. You can get this for like 10 bucks a bag. And I didn't even wash it. I just let it settle. and I planted a bunch of crypts. So in here I've got a bunch of different types of crypts. I think this one's a compactor. This is like a tiny little chain sword that I'm trying to grow. These are Wendy-eye crypts or whatever. I got these from the shop. This is a Rosen Maiden or an Iron Maiden. This one, would you believe, it's actually a pink flamingo that was dying in the tank upstairs that I brought down here. And now it's sending out new leaves. More compactors as well, and this one's another Rosen Maiden. But basically the goal of this tank is just to grow up like a little crypt jungle. Now, there is a pair of pea puffers in here, and they've actually been living with these shrimp. So I think the shrimp have been keeping them fed. There might be 2 or 3 pea puffers in here. I'm actually going to remove the pea puffers and use this tank for something else at some point. I'm just not sure what yet, so the pea puffers are still in here. But yeah, like you can see it's growing in really well. This has been set up for like 3 months and it's been a little bit slow, but it's starting to hit its stride, and I've been fertilizing the crap out of it. So there you go, there's the pair of pea puffers coming out. I don't know, maybe I should keep the peas. I find that they need a lot of live food and I just haven't been able to give them the love they need at the moment. So I'm thinking they'll be better off at the shop. I can get some new ones later on and try and breed them again when I can buy blackworms. And yeah, do that whole thing over again. I've actually got videos on how to breed these. They're pretty easy to breed, pretty fun. They're just a ton of live food, which is kind of annoying, but yeah, again, super pretty tank. Excited about how it's going to go, and yeah. Okay, so this next tank, I just had to go collect some mosquito larvae to get these fish to come out. But in here, I've got a pair of Pistogramma borellii. So I think these are like maybe the opal ones. There's the male there. Come on, man, come on out. There you go. Look how cool that fish is. So he's just a stunner, and the female is in that cave to his left, so to the right here. Now she's actually in there with some wrigglers. So I bred these in store and I love them so much that I decided to take them home. And now I'm breeding them here. So this tank kind of looks crap. It just needs some more time to settle in. I'm going to add some more plants and stuff to this as I go along. But yeah, the tank itself doesn't look amazing, but the fish are loving it and it's working for breeding. So the goal is just try and get this pair to be as good of parents as possible. Try and get them to cooperate with each other and raise up some babies, so it's really easy for me to do. And when I get some babies, I'll take them all out, raise them up myself, and put them in the shop. But this is why I love this kind of fish. Look at that male, huh? Isn't he just the most pretty thing? Like, that's just a stunning fish. So pistogrammas, they can be a little bit pricey, but they're super cool. I like putting them in community tanks, just a pair or, you know, a male or something like that as a centerpiece fish. Super amazing. Yeah, I'm obsessed with these guys, and the whole breeding cycle is really cool. Like, you'll get a male and a female pair. You feed them a ton of green cuisine, bug buffet, mosquito larvae, just tons and tons of food. And then the female, if you supply her a cave like this, she'll actually go into the cave herself and he'll breed with her. She'll raise up the babies, and yeah, you'll see they'll come out with all their babies, and it's really cool watching them parent. So yeah, we won't spend too long at this tank because, well, not a lot's going on, but this tank is a tank for these black ocellatus. I got a pair from Adrian, who just gave me them, and the male is down here. So I've never played around with ocellatus before. I've got a ton of snail shells in here for them to try and breed in. These are a shell dweller, so they breed and live in snail shells. I think he might have babies in there. I've got no clue how to breed them. I know I've got a male and a female, and I see them flaring up at each other all the time. So I've got them in here with this cichlid aragonite, and I've actually got some valsinaria growing through the rocks. It's taken a little bit of time, but it's slowly starting to spread around, and the Anubias is settling into the volcanic rock and everything like that. This tank kind of looks cool. I think it just needs a bit more time for all those plants to grow in, and it'll start to look even better. But yeah, I really want to try and breed these ocellatus. They do like the bug buffet. They like as well the mosquito larvae I've been feeding them, and I also feed them baby brine shrimp, so we'll see if they start breeding at some point. But this is a cute little tank. I'm really excited to try and play around with these and get them breeding. Okay, this is a tank that I'm pretty excited about, but it just needs a little bit more time as well. But this tank is a tank for my Aru 2 blue eyes. I've raised them up and I've been just keeping them in here for backup breeders, but also just because they, you know, suit this tank really well. There's some really nice Anubias in here that does look really good. I've got some house plants growing out of the top as well, which is going to take a while to settle in, but a lot of these tanks are really new, and planter tanks take a long time to start looking amazing. So I've got some Rotala down here and some Bacopa and stuff. But when I first set this tank up, I only had one of these floodlights on it, and it just wasn't enough light, and all the stem plants I added died, which was really annoying. But since then, I've added a second floodlight and they've started to grow. So I've been pruning them off, and my goal is just to make like a bunch of plants in here and use this tank as like a tank for, firstly, just a planter tank. But then that way I can harvest snail-free plants and stem plants from here that I can use in my other scapes. And yeah, because I don't want pest snails and stuff. So I've also, another main goal of this tank, I've got some adult coolie loaches in here. You wouldn't know it because they don't come out until night. But there's probably about 15 coolie loaches in here, all massive size. And the goal is just to see if they start breeding in here. Kind of like the Hillstream loaches. I'm going to keep these adult coolie loaches in here until I tear down the tank, see how many are in here, and then take those adults and try and intensively breed them and see if I can't breed some coolie loaches, because I'd love to do that. But you can chuck that in there like that. You can see how much I feed, eh? I'm not afraid to feed a lot. And yeah, there's a ton of red cherry shrimp in here too, which are taking over now as well. But this is just like a planted tank, and we'll just see how it goes in the future. Let's just play around, let's have fun. It's Bob Ross. No mistakes, there's just happy accidents. That was it, yeah. So let's just see what happens. We also did have them breed in here, which is kind of cool. Little baby blue eye here. So there you go. How natural is that? They've been breeding themselves. All right, this next tank we definitely have to feed to get everything to come out. But these tanks are awesome. So in here, I've got my yabbies. So these are Cherax Destructors. And you can see there's a huge one here at the front. They're actually these electric blue yabbies. Look at that one, eh? You're flaring up at me. This is one of the big ones. There's another big one in here. They've actually bred in here, would you believe it or not? So they've turned out to be super easy to breed. As the food comes out, you'll see there's a big one in here as well that I'm waiting for it to come out. You guys should actually probably name it. We'll give this pair a name. They've been breeding in here. Leave the name suggestions in the comments below, and we'll try and choose one. You know what's funny about this tank is I didn't think they were going to breed. So what I did was I added some neocaradinas in here to help clean up all this extra bug buffet. And what I did was I added blue dream shrimp. So I have the electric blue crayfish and the blue dream shrimp in here because it look like they're babies. So you can see down here, this is actually a crayfish, this one. You see that? That's a little baby crayfish, and you can already see, I think they look kind of blue, don't they? So I want to see how many of these crayfish actually survive, but there he is. There's the big bopper himself. How's that for a wet pet? That guy is massive. Like, you could actually eat him for dinner. I'm not gonna yet, but yeah, I've been really enjoying keeping these fish. Well, not these fish, these crayfish. And I've had problems with these escaping in the past. These tanks actually have a lip all the way around, and I just don't think they can get over it. So I haven't had any escapees, and I've even put a little rock over there so that they can't climb off the overflow and get out. I don't know how long I want to keep them for. I'm honestly kind of attached to them. I collected these from the Outback when I went to the Outback, and so now I'm kind of attached to them. But they are taking up a tank space that I'd like to use for maybe something else in the future. But I don't know, not many people have crayfish in their fish rooms, and you know, every time I have someone in here that doesn't like fish, I show them this tank and they lose their shit. So it's kind of like one of those tanks that I do enjoy a lot, but might not be forever. I do also have like some super red bristlenose in here to help clean up the algae, and I also don't have substrate in here. So this is just a bare bottom. I put a ton of rocks in here, some driftwood, and I've thrown a couple of caves in here as well. And yeah, they've even been breeding. So what a cool little tank, hey? But they do love that bug buffet. It's heaps better than whatever they were eating in the Outback. So look at this beast. Look at his claws, hey? I'm too scared to put my hands in this tank sometimes because of him. There, how's that? Now I know this is a tank everyone wants to see because in the last video it was in the background and I had a lot of comments about it. So we'll get some bug buffet in here. But in here, this is my Congo Tetra, kind of like African tank with a Pakistani loach in it. So this one's going to look better as time goes on as well. But we'll add this in here and we'll feed the Congo Tetras and the Baishas. I feed this tank a lot as well. But I actually bred all these Congo Tetras and I'm growing them out so I can spawn them again when I finish this fish room. But I've got, I don't know, this group of Congo Tetras in here, but then I've also got 4 Senegal birches in here, or Baishas or whatever you want to say. They're awesome. Everyone loves the Baishas. It's the first time I've ever kept them. And I originally had 5, but one died choking on another fish that I fed them. So now I'm very careful about what I feed my Baishas. But unfortunately, I think I have all females. So I'm going to need someone to give me a male at some point, and I'm going to try and breed them. You can see they swim around these rocks. I've set these rocks up for them so they can go and hide in them. And I'm basically just growing these out till they're big enough that I can breed them, and I'll feed them earthworms from my worm farm and feed them lots of like chopped up fish and stuff like that. But they look like a dinosaur crossed with an eel, and they're just, you know, one of the neatest little things that I've ever seen. They get much bigger than this too. So I've also got some Vallisneria that I've tried jamming between the rocks, and the goal is to have like Anubias on these branches and Javafen on these branches, and then just have like tons of Val growing in here. And I think this tank just needs a little bit more time to settle in and it'll look amazing. But you might be wondering, why did I have the Pakistani loach in here? And it's because this is the tank I use to kill snails. So if I want to bring a new plant in, I rinse it off in this tank. Like this is some wisteria I got from the shop. I put the plant in here and all the pest snails get eaten off by him, and then I can use the plants in other tanks and not spread like bladder snails or pond snails or trumpet snails because he eats them all. So this is kind of like a double whammy tank. But yeah, I'm really excited about this one, and I think over time it's just going to do better and better and better, and I'm really keen to try and breed those birches. But that's it for all the tanks in here. Let's go outside and have a look at the ponds. Okay, well, it's just started to rain out here, so I don't want to spend too much time out here. And I'm going to have a video coming out on how I set all these ponds up soon, so you guys can just stay tuned for that. But basically, these are just like outdoor aquariums. I'm going to be using these over the summer and keeping a bunch of fish in here. I'll tell you what's in each one of these ponds as we go along. But I'm going to be keeping these ponds, yeah, over summer, breeding a bunch of fish in them, playing around with them. I'm going to probably redo this area and make it like more pretty next summer. But I just ran out of time this year and I wanted to get them set up. Over the summer here, it kind of is perfect time to keep tropical fish outside because it doesn't get too cold that they can't survive, but it's also warm, like, so they do breed. It's tropical. I live in a subtropical area, but over winter I'll have to harvest everything out and reset it all up. So I've added a sponge filter to each one of these just to add aeration and so I can keep more stuff in there. And I just treat them as outdoor aquariums basically. In this first pond here, I mean, they're kind of boring to look at. In this first pond here, I've got honey blue eyes, and there's actually fry on the top of the water here too. I've added this net here to try and keep birds out of the ponds. I do get the occasional dragonfly larvae in here, but to be honest, like when they're outside, what am I gonna do? I can't control it. So I just try and keep the birds out. There are kookaburras that like hang around in the trees out here in my backyard and all that sort of stuff. So I know that maybe they're picking off 1 or 2 here and there, but the fish stay down the bottom, and yeah, they do pretty well. These ponds are really good too for like soaking driftwood. So I've got some driftwood that I've collected from a creek soaking in here, and they're also good for growing plants. So I've got some buckets in here with coarse bedding sand, and I've added some crypts in here that weren't doing too good at the shop that I've just shoved in here, and they're gonna start doing amazing. I've also got some swords there, and you just wait, like I'll do another update of the room in like a month and you'll see how many plants start growing. In here, these guys love me. These are my goldfish, and I have been feeding these a ton of bug buffet, and I've been feeding them a ton of green cuisine, and I'm growing them out because I want to try and breed some goldfish. Did you eat a bee or something, Sam? What are you making all that noise for? But yeah, I've got like 15 goldfish in here. I've got some black ones and orange ones and whatnot. But I've this pond's kind of funny. I've added a floodlight here, and this floodlight at night attracts like a ton of bugs. And I used to have a bug light here, but the bug light during the rain got rained on and shorted the whole house. So the bug light's gone, but we do have floodlights. And I'm kind of planning on adding a floodlight to each one of these. And they turn on at, they're connected to a Wi-Fi timer. They turn on at like sunset, and then they stay on for like 3 hours and turn off so they don't bother the neighbors. But during that time, you should see these goldfish swim around like sharks around that light, and all the bugs get attracted and beetles fall in and whatever, and they get like free range bug buffet basically. So they're pretty well trained actually, these little guys now. They're used to me feeding them, and I forgot to bring them out food. So you guys are just gonna have to wait. But I'm gonna probably redo this pond and try and add some like gravel or something to the bottom here so I can breed these goldies. But that's the goldfish pond. Then over here, this one's kind of looking a bit drab. This one in here has my black Moscow guppies. Not Moscows. Oh, I think they are. There's just black guppies in here. You can see there's a few babies up the top. They go straight down when I feed for some reason. They're just not very well trained yet. So those are the guppies. I don't even know if I've added fish in here yet. There's just plants. There's like some swords and crypts and whatever, and some foxtail. I think I added fish in here because I haven't seen any mosquito larvae, but I guess the bubbling also stops mosquito larvae, so I need to do a bit of a deep dive in here. But these two ponds are the most interesting here. So in here, I added an adult colony of leopard frog plecos, and you can see there's actually one in there, and there's a tail. I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to breed leopard frog plecos outside in the summer. I don't think anyone's ever done that before. So he's actually fanning in there, and I'm wondering whether this rain's been triggering them to breed. I've got leopard frog plecos in here. I'm going to add more caves and more wood and try and breed them. And I've added 397 plecos in here, and this one hasn't cleared up yet because the plants haven't settled in, but there's like some Valison area and some swords and whatever. And in here I've got like some lotuses and Val, and I've also got crypts here. And look at this huge Ponageton that I've added today. That was from my tank upstairs. We can have a quick look at that too. There's also this foxtail, but yeah, I guess the goal here, breed. There's also threadfin rainbows in here, and there's Tenellus blue eyes in there too with them as well. Basically, I'll do a video on like all these ponds, but I want to see if I can breed some plecos outdoors over the summer. So I had these at the shop. I had no space for them at home. I didn't want to sell them. They are a little bit expensive. They're probably like, especially as adults, $500 a pair or something like that. You know, I just thought, let's just do it for the YouTube video for you guys. Let's see how it goes and see if we can breed them. So I could be wasting a lot of money here, or I could be a genius, and that gets me excited. So yeah, stay tuned on the channel for that. Right, so the last tank I wanted to show you guys is the tank in my living room, which I'm actually gonna have to move at some point so I can make room for this couch that's too big for this room. But I set this up about a year ago, and I've got a couple of videos on this tank. You can see the houseplants have exploded in here, and I trimmed this probably like a month ago, and this is like another month of growth. It just goes absolutely nuts, but I've never actually done a water change on this tank. I only top it up. So it's actually due for a top up. You can see here that like the water's dropped a little bit, and that's just evaporation, and the plants also transpire water and make it lose its water. But I've never actually swapped water in here. So every time it drops down, I just fill it back up. And yeah, this tank's just been doing amazing. You can see in here I've got some really pretty Praecox rainbow fish, or dwarf neon rainbow fish. I've got some Aru blue eyes. I've got some threadfin rainbows. I've got hillstream loaches, Ficardus rainbows, and probably about 500 red cherry shrimp in here too. But yeah, this is like a tank that we sit down and enjoy at night. And yeah, we love this tank here. So I am gonna have to move this tank, and I'm probably gonna have to dismantle it. So I'm gonna be resetting this tank up probably next year. But at the moment, we're just enjoying it. I'm gonna keep these Praecox and all that stuff in there to breed in the future as well. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes. But this is the upstairs tank, and you can see the plants have done pretty well too. Like the crypts have gone crazy. I actually pulled the Ponageton out and left the baby there and put the Ponageton in the pond. The moss has gone nuts, the shrimp have gone nuts, the crypts have done really well, and the lotus went great as well. So, and the houseplants did really good too. You can see it's just like a jungle. Look at all this. This is all just from the magic of fish water. So yeah, I'm gonna have to trim this back soon too. It's gonna start taking over the whole entire living room. But look at that.